How's it going, everybody? Just puttering in the saw shop. I'm getting ready to put Caleb's 288 together. We had a massive snowstorm this weekend, and I've been cleaning up from that. So rather than trying to rush through putting a saw together, I thought I would continue on small projects this week, get some stuff ready for the upcoming weeks, and make some good content for you guys. Thanks for showing up here. I got a solid crew of people that stop in here every time I post a video. I appreciate you guys. I love the comments and just the general sense of community we have. You guys help us on this channel. And when I say us, there's a few other people that are behind the scenes, but you guys help me a lot on this channel. What am I doing today? Well, I got this 200t. I'll let the cat out of the bag, friends. I've had this saw for years. If you go back in the channel, I bought, I don't know, 10, 12 of these things. I can't remember, friends. I bought many of them and didn't know anything about these. I knew they were the climbing saw of choice. My buddy had them in a bin. Just all of them trashed, broken mounts. Like, it was a mess, friends. There was oil about 2 inches in the bottom, all the screws, and I actually had to buy a colander and dump the oil through that, and there's about 463,000 parts in the bottom of this Tupperware bin. But I ended up with, I think I built 9 of these, friends. This was one of the last ones I did. I did build this saw on the channel. If you guys are curious, go way back or just go on my channel and search 200t. I did build this saw, and this was my 200t for a while. Well, friends, I don't climb, and this is a nice saw for just around the yard. I do like these. You guys, if you've ever run one of these things are nasty. I think they're, what are they? 35 cc's? 30, I don't even know how many cc's these saws are, friends, but they're nuts. High revving, not the torquiest saw, but they're high revving and just, you know, they do have decent grunt. So this was the last one I had. It's just been sitting on the shelf, and I'll let the cat out of the bag. I did send this, I gave this away to a young fella who's climbing. I like to do stuff like that, friends. I got so many saws here, and if a young man's working and, you know, getting his climbing career going and he needs a saw. So this is actually Hogan's saw, friend, Bucket's son. I gave this to him, and I hadn't run it much. I threw this thing together, and it sat. I ran 3-4 tanks through it. The compression's not the greatest on this saw. I don't know if it's because it's just never really been run, or the fact that it's just, you know, it's not a good build. Anyhow, friends, long story short, Hogan was looking for a top handle saw, and I thought, well, I got this one. So I threw this in a box and mailed it to BC. Got the saw back, and right away, it didn't run good, friends. I ran it here a little bit, threw it in a box, and away it went. Well, Bucket fired this up, and he said it was boggy, didn't start good, and I thought, that's weird, we'll send it back. Well, this saw, like most 200Ts, friends, had a worn carburetor in it. I did repair it, but I guess that repair let go. So what I've been doing on this saw, I had a couple of what I thought were new 200T carbs, and they were. I bought out the remaining stock a year or two ago. And when I say remaining, there wasn't much stuff, but a local fella worked at a dealer that closed in the 90s, and he bought all their parts. So I bought, you know, several huge boxes of parts, and in there was 200T carbs. So not knowing the condition of those carbs, friends, I mounted a 200T carb. It's brand new to this thing, and what I've been doing is starting it randomly and making sure that there's nothing wrong with this carb. Let's see how this thing starts today. I have had it running. Give it a little choke. It starts 1 pull, 2 pulls generally. I probably just flooded it. You guys can hear it. This thing's super rich right now. That's a good thing. Okay, and it... Oh, I turned it off. Checking for air leak. Okay, friends. It is an honor to work on these saws for a guy that climbs. These are the moneymaker for tree services. Guys that climb, you guys can see they have a lanyard built in. These are hanging off that man's hip all day. It better start, it better idle, it better restart, and it better have enough power to do what he's going to do. So, that's the preface to this saw. I got it back. It runs good now. We're going to go outside and put it in the wood. I have a decent sized piece of ash for this saw. This chain was absolutely fried. I touched it up with I had one file for this size chain. These are those low pro 43 gauge narrow kerf chains that still runs on these. I had one file for that, and that file wasn't very good. So hopefully, and I don't have a raker gauge for this size chain, so I did it by eye. Don't judge me if my chain's shattered. Anyhow, friends, I want to put this thing in the wood, tune it, make sure it runs good. I'm not going to lean it out till we go outside because it's cold outside. This saw will inevitably get leaner because the air is denser when it's cold. Now, I want to run this saw and feel how it runs and decide what I'm doing with it. I have a plan on what I want to do to this saw and execute it. Let's go outside and run this thing. I'm going to grab a piece of ash that isn't frozen. It's in the shop here. We'll take it outside. Let's make 3 or 4 good cuts with this thing and make sure that the carb is up to the task. If it runs good, then we can talk about porting this thing. I can't port it until it runs good. I'll meet you guys outside. Okay, let's fire this thing up and get it warm. I haven't run a 200t in quite a while. These things are nuts. This thing's way too rich, friends. I'm gonna lean this thing out about 1/8 of a turn. Okay, there we go, friends. I adjusted the low jet now. See how it restarts? Okay, it should start easily every time now. Okay guys, can you hear that 4-stroke? It's hard to hear on these because these things pull huge RPM. I have never timed one of these. I think it's long blowdown, high intake. These things are strong. It runs better now, I think. Yeah. Just thought I'd jump in here. Hope everybody's doing well. Do a little interjection. I love a good interjection. I don't know about you guys. I really cut up the video of me running this 200T. I didn't want you guys to have to sit through all the fine adjustments and getting this carburetor set where it needed to be. This saw runs a million times better. It ran horribly when I got it back. It was hard to start, hard to tune, didn't idle well, would fall flat if you tried to rev it up. It was just all over the place. So I'm super happy. Can't port a saw that doesn't run good. So I really cut it up though, just to miss the boring parts. But anyways, this thing runs way better, and I'm a happy man. I'm also happy because my daughter is eating solids. You parents out there know what's going on there. Anyways, back to the video. Okay, well, it seems to run good. Seems to restart. That wood is, wow, is that stuff hard now. It's dry, hard ash. We cut that last summer. Actually, Buckin cut this tree down, I believe. Again, this chain, I might have to play with this chain. It's sharp, but again, I don't usually run saws this small. Decent workout for a stock 200T, especially with this stuff being so hard. But friends, I think I know what I'm going to do to this saw just based on what it is and where it's going. How does it restart? Got to be reliable. Okay, let's go back in the shop. I reached out to Ryan at Wolf Creek and I got this super rowdy little pop-up piston for a 200T. Friends, look how small that is. Here, for instance, here's the piston for Caleb's 288. It's pretty funny when you think about it. Okay, these saws are pretty nuts for what they are. Okay, I ordered this. I'll show you guys it up close. Okay, it's got a nice little pop-up on it, cable rings. Now there's two ways I could go with this piston, and I haven't decided yet, but again, I wanted you guys to see that up close. So this will jack up the compression a little bit. A little more compression in this, I think, would be a good thing. This saw is really low on compression right now. I think that's why it was struggling to cut that tree. I mean, the chain could be a little bit better, but this saw, the compression's never really come up on it. Again, that's a OEM cylinder with a Meteor piston. I went back and looked through my notes from how many years ago. Not super impressed. So we'll step it up a notch and I'll put this highway piston in. And again, we got cable rings for it. Now, there's a couple things I can do to this saw. And again, I'm not 100% sold on which way I'm going. I'm just bagging this up while I yak with you guys. Now, from what I know about these saws, I've never put a wheel on one, and we're going to do that in a coming up video, and then I can really tell you guys what I want to do with it. I know these are open transfers. Open transfers, kind of like a home light. They have two transfers that are open. I believe these saws generally run about 99, 98 on the exhaust roof, which is our super high exhaust roof for a saw this size. I think they have 25, 26 degrees of blowdown, and the intake generally stock, I think they run about 154, 156, somewhere in there. And usually, I think the squish is fairly loose on these, friends, which isn't a bad thing. Remember, these things eat a ton of fuel. They idle a lot. They're hanging off guys' hips. They get started and run, and these things run hard lives. If you've ever bought one of these, and in fact, friends, I bought another one for the channel. Just maybe we'll make one go nuts. Look at this thing, no muffler on it. It's completely smashed here. It does run though. This is a runner, so. Buddy of mine picked that up last week and we made a deal on it. Because again, I don't need another climbing saw, but every climber I know does. This is the #1 saw I get asked for. So, what am I going to do with this saw? I would like to lower the exhaust roof, not raise it. I know a lot of people think I raise every exhaust roof on every saw. I actually don't, friends. Some of them I leave stock, some of them I lower with machine work, some of them I do raise, some of them I widen. Depends on the saw. I don't know whether I can widen this till I look at it as a percentage of bore diameter. I don't want to go too wide because I don't want to wear the rings out prematurely. I could also, friends, go single ring on this saw, which should make it a little bit zippier. I could cut that pop up bigger. I could really drop the cylinder and deck it. Sky's the limit. So, but the main thing is this thing has to be reliable, okay? That is the #1 thing here. This chain is way too tight. That's my bad. But that's the #1 thing here. This thing has to be reliable. It seems to be reliable right now, and it seems to be cutting okay. No carb issues. I had it way too rich at the beginning. That's why it stalled. So again, we're going to dig into a 200T. I want to build a 200T. This is a 16-inch bar. I'd like to run, maybe for Hogan to be able to run a 20 on this thing. I don't know. I have big enough wood to really test this saw here, so that could be the fun of it. I could actually work this thing out. The only thing that's done to this, friends, I did a muffler mod to it when it was my saw, 100%. So that's what we're doing. Now that I know this runs, we can, in the next week or two, we can put a timing wheel on this saw, see where it's set at, and then if we got to do machine work, we'll do that. My lathe is actually down right now, friends. The motor on it gave it up the other day. Right after I was done a job, I went to start it up again, and so I got to do some wiring on my lathe. But until then, we can put a wheel on this thing and start looking it over and see what do I think this saw needs, and then we can make a decision from there. I think this saw already pulls enough RPM. I don't want it to have more. I think this saw needs more torque on the bottom end. So that's the way I'm going to be headed with this saw. I'm going to actually probably lower the exhaust roof, give it more intake timing. Not too much though, because again, if I over intake this saw, it's not going to idle very good. It's going to be a fuel hog. And again, these don't carry a lot of fuel, friends. So if you're climbing 100 feet up on a rope and you got to constantly wait, send the saw down to your groundsman on a rope and get him to refuel it, that's more time on the spurs. I've never climbed, friends, but from what I hear, more time on spurs means more pain in your legs and shins and feet. So I want to keep this thing reliable, but I want to make it pull a little bit harder. So that's going to be the build we're doing on this thing. The other 200, I'll have to go through that on the channel. Maybe we'll make that one stupid and see where that thing's going to end up. But anyhow, friends, I think we got the carb solved. This thing's been sitting for 15, 20 minutes. I think we got it. I'm happy. That's the first time I've put this saw on the wood since I changed the carb. So definitely no carb issues here. And again, if you have one of these that are boggy, change the carb. Or go back in my videos. I did a carb repair. Most of them I did haven't failed. This one failed for whatever reason. So depends on if you have a backup saw or not. If this is your primary climbing saw and it's starting to bog, just put a new carb on it and call it a day. Anyhow, friends, that's what I'm doing today. Still ms200t. I'm so happy that this thing's fixed. It's been a weekend of getting back to my roots and doing saw repair, and you know what? I'm happy. Life's good when you can get a few saws back up and running and they actually cooperate. Once in a while you get into a funk where you get saw after saw that's giving you trouble. I'm happy. I got a couple saws running this week and on this weekend, and it's good. Hey everybody, it's time for question of the day. It's lunchtime in the mobile tin van. How's everybody doing? I got an email from Chris Talbot. He's actually a tin basher like me. And good to hear from you, buddy. It's always cool to hear from another tin basher. Chris Talbot, his question of the day. He has a Holtzforma Farmertech G388. That is a clone of 038 Mag or ms200t if you live abroad. He's had that saw for 2 or 3 years, always ran, started, no problems with it. It's starting to get hard to start, and it runs funny. When you put it in the wood, he said it's boggy. By the sounds of it, it's boggy, not a lot of power. When you hold the saw on its side, it idles funny. And here's the one thing that he mentioned, with the bar and chain on, it runs worse. Now, he said he already sprayed the crank seals. Now, you guys saw on that 268 a couple videos ago, as you're seeing this now, I sprayed that and it didn't really act up. Just because it doesn't change how the saw runs doesn't mean you don't have a crank seal problem. Chris said he ordered a couple of crank seals. Chris, one thing that makes me think the bearings may be on the way out on that saw is when you put the bar and chain on, that puts load on the crankshaft end and the clutch a little bit. That could be just enough to make that crank bearing move and will actually cause the leak. So most times when we spray the crank bearings, we don't have a bar and chain on, and what ends up happening is you don't suck the fluid you're spraying into the leak. So Chris, I think that's your problem, buddy. I would take a really hard look at the crank bearings in that saw. Also, those aftermarket carburetors, I've had 99% failure rate with aftermarket carbs. I find they don't run good, and even if they do, they don't run good for long. So maybe dig into that carb, put a kit in it, and check it out. Also, the last thing, I've had aftermarket fuel lines that turn to mush. They look great on top of the fuel tank. As they go into the carb, they feel fine, they're pliable. But if you look in the tank, I've had ones that'll stick together. They're so deteriorated. So hope that helps you, Chris. And again, if you guys have a question, send me an email. It's on my About page. And I'm going to put these at the end of as many videos as I can. Hope that helps you out, Chris. Take her easy.